America's job-creating entrepreneurs, are they a dying breed? 1 week after the White House says our economy is back up, a new report revealing more U.S. businesses are closing down than opening up for the first time on record. So what is killing the American dream? Hi, everybody. I'm David Aslan. Welcome to Forbes on Fox. Let's go in focus to find out with Mr. Capitalism, Steve Forbes, Rich Karlgaard, Elizabeth McDonald, John Tamny, Rick Unger, and Mike Ozanian. Mike, it's not looking good.
No, David, it's not. Entrepreneurs are a dying breed due to too many taxes and too much regulation. Normally, during a recovery, particularly when you have a severe recession, business startups and take-home pay increase at a very rapid rate. They're being thwarted now because the policies from Washington have been focused on the redistribution of wealth, not the creation of wealth.
And that's hurting, Steve, the most valuable companies. It's those small companies that have the best jobs because you grow with a job. Your responsibilities and salaries grow. The report's author, by the way, the head of Gallup organization, said, let's get one thing clear. The economy is never truly coming back unless we reverse the birth and death trends of American businesses.
Well, David, if that trend continued, we'd have a European-style economy, which is why their growth rates over time always lag those of the U.S. But the thing to keep in mind is the entrepreneurial spirit is very much alive. We have a feature in Forbes called 30 Under 30, literally hundreds of young people doing amazing things in numerous areas of our life. What's happening here is a stifling of the entrepreneurial spirit, but it is only temporary. And once, as Mike points out, we make changes on money, on taxes, and Obamacare, which will happen in the next 3 years, you're going to see a real flowering of entrepreneurship.
EMAC, I pray that Steve is right. However, you think of the costs of all the regulations we've had over the past 6 years, over $1 trillion, well over $1 trillion in costs. And then it's the spirit that is being killed as well. Spirit of enterprise is being hurt by this
I'm
rate.
so glad you said that, because the genius of America is a genius of the entrepreneurial spirit. And, you know, more and more, Washington, D. is becoming like envy empowered, that somewhere somebody is successful. And this inflamed egoism that the president, the administration, and Congress can put the government on this kind of miracle-grow government course with a lot of government spending, siphoning credit creation out of the capital markets for the government. So, you know, David, I'll tell you something. Look at the statistics. You're absolutely right. Since the regulatory state really started to balloon, you saw the net job creation of small businesses drop by half since 1999, and net business formation from the little guys drop. And they're the ones who create all the
exactly. And Rick, it's the little guys that are close to the community that give the American people the spirit that things are getting better. In fact, we just did a poll at Fox News showing that 64% of the people, this is a big number, still believe we're in a recession. Isn't this a part of it?
Well, it probably is a part of it, but I do think this is a bit of a lagging indicator, and I'd be slightly cautious. If we're sitting here a year from now and we're having the same conversation because those statistics are remaining the same, we have reason to worry. I think this is temporary. It's the result of what we've seen, some very difficult years in the economy. I think by this time next year, you'll see this.
I hope it's temporary, but we can see it's a long-term trend, Rich. The Gallup organization went back to the 1970s. That's when they started this thing. So since they started, we are now seeing the worst record of new jobs starting up than ever.
Well, David, think about who becomes an entrepreneur. You know, an entrepreneur is driven by wanting to show that they're right, you know, that they can build a product or service and create customers and make a profit from it. Nobody starts out being an entrepreneur so that they can say, golly gee, now I get to hire accountants, and now I get to hire compliance officers, and now I get to hire lawyers. And the burden for, you know, accountants and compliance officers and lawyers just keeps ratcheting up. It's this ratchet effect, you know, that you're seeing.
And John Tamny, that's precisely why the Congress just passed something they call the Regulatory Accountability Act. It's a Republican bill in the House, but they did get 19 Democratic congressmen to go along with them. And this is an attempt. The president, by the way, has said he's going to veto this measure, even though before he said he was for fewer regulations.
Well, that would be a bad idea, but I want to stress that Steve's right. The entrepreneur is not dead. What we have is a problem of investment. There are no entrepreneurs without capital, but when investors commit capital to new ideas, they are buying future dollar income streams. So it's no surprise that in modern times, the birth of companies has declined, with a President Bush and a President Obama both seeking the devaluation of the dollar. But the good news is once we reverse that, you'll see entrepreneurialism flower again.
Well, Mike, again, nobody's saying it's dead. The entrepreneurial spirit is a part of American culture. But you look at trends, and the trend is not good.
That's right. And what we need to reverse that trend, David, is something that we saw with President Kennedy and then later with President Reagan. They sharply cut marginal tax rates, which is the tax you pay on that extra dollar of income. And those tax cuts were permanent. So as John Tamny points out, people that were then investing capital knew that going forward in the long run, they were going to earn an extra return. And then therefore, we're going to hire people and therefore pay more. That's what we need today.
Steve, that's a great point. And in fact, the Club for Growth, which is a free market organization out there, has sort of challenged the president by saying, hey, look, if you're only interested in cutting corporate taxes, that's not good enough for the American people. They want all of their taxes to go down, including personal taxes.
Well, that's right. It's got to be across the board. Kennedy understood it. Ronald Reagan understood it. But we have to, too, David, get the money right. The Federal Reserve's created a credit market that's been very hostile, very bad for small and new businesses. So you combine that with the regulations, especially from Obamacare, and it's no wonder we've been stalling.
And EMAC, regulations are a tax, are they not?
Oh, yeah, they're a big tax. They're a big tax on small business formation. They're a big tax on the business person's wallet. And, you know, I'll tell you something. Time and again, we see the government reacting with a regulatory workforce to fix crises. Look at Dodd-Frank. When really it's about a failure of the imagination within the government. We see that Federal Reserve chairman have said that all the time, but they overreact and really slam businesses with a lot of rules.
Rich, you have written a lot over the past couple of decades about the blooming of entrepreneurship in America with the Reagan Revolution. That was because of tax cuts, but we forget regulatory cuts were very much a part of that revolution, weren't they?
Yeah, you know, and of course I live in Silicon Valley, and Silicon Valley lives in a different world where there's still plenty of capital and people are creating billion-dollar enterprises, but that's not the case for most of the country or most of the world. The real question we have to ask ourselves is, why is it so hard to start, say, a hair salon?
Yeah.
Why should that be a heavily regulated industry?
And that's what this bill, Rick, that Congress just passed is about making it easier for the smaller guys to deal with these huge number of regulations. By the way, Rick, would you be one of those 19 congressmen who signed on with the Republicans to cut regulations, or would you be with the president who's going to veto that bill?
I haven't read the bill yet. How's that for a political answer?
Like everybody else in Congress.
Yeah, but at least I admit that I haven't read the bill. Look, I hear what you're all saying. I get it, but I'd be a little bit cautious. I think next year you're going to see a mega rebirth of entrepreneurialism in this country, and I'm going to remind you then.
Hey, listen, we're all for it. Let's hope it happens. Thank you, gang.